Now, I'm aware I made a video over a year ago with a similar name about this game, but that video is pretty old and it has a lot of iffy research, and it was more so about the unofficial version. And with the Halloween season coming here shortly, I feel like it would be criminal to not cover most of the important NBD versions out there, including all these versions on screen that my video editor probably struggled to render, but whatever. Of course, you can find timestamps of all the versions, and I also want to briefly mention some history here and there. The origins of NVD are kind of a mystery. What I mean by that is while we have a brief outline of what happens, there aren't a lot of direct sources that point to anything, so apologies if this seems a little messy. The game's real page was created on May 18th of 2015, and Stella Wisps, who at that point in time still went by Subwoofer X3, had permission from Anar to make this fan game. In fact, Anar was kind enough to send the Fnatic assets for sale to work with. People were excited and apparently even Riskrim took notice of it. However, unfortunately, the game got cancelled due to multiple personal issues. It was a mix between stress, not enjoying working on the game, and also she was sorry for disappointing the fans, but at least she didn't info dump on the mechanics, and hey, we still had the original Fnatic to be excited about, right? Right? Well, sorta, as apparently a few weeks later, Stella was working alongside the Purity Centers for 3.0 and did the programming for that version. In fact, when the Project DI trilogy was in development, she began development on the 3.0 inspired version of Nightmare Before Disney to work with the Project DI trilogy, alongside what I believe was going to be Oblivious Casa 2015. So, 2015 was going to be the year where Fnatic, Oblivious Casa, and Nightmare Before Disney released, right? Well, as you guys are aware, the entire Slime Beast and Purity Sin drama happened and basically wiped out any chance of Fnatic being released for quite a while. Pretty much all we got for info on this version of MBD is an office render, and also the fact there was a blog post ARG which all of the 6 people enjoyed looking into. So, after all this chaos, Nightmare Before Disney was basically cancelled twice. Though luckily this was right around the time when Marat, who went by Photo Negative Mickey back then, entered the Fnatic scene and ended up releasing games basically every other month. And while I'm not fully sure if this is true, apparently Marat asked Stella for permission to make his own unofficial version of Nightmare Before Disney, and she was alright with it and even provided some of the models. This leads us to the 3 unofficial versions of Nightmare Before Disney made by Marat, starting with version 1, which was released on March 17th, 2016. And, well, it's definitely a concept. The game's plot consists of our player, who is unnamed, suddenly waking up in some weird, nightmarish Disney area, and they find some supplies to help them out like a flashlight and cameras. Yes, cameras. Also, apparently Joe is a part of the Fnatic canon. Who is Joe? No, that's a way too easy joke to make. Also, despite the fact you think our player would be in a panic while writing these logs, they proceed to play with both the font and the text size, so at least they know that much. Also, they can't even write. As for how this game looks, I mean, yeah, it looks like absolute garbage. I don't have any defense here. Our mechanics include being able to look at the cameras and the flashlight mechanic. With the cameras, we can, just look at the horribly made environments and models. With the flashlight, we just wait for a suit to enter the office and then we shine a light on them. Oh, did you think I was going to say more? That's it. So we have a singular mechanic which gets old really quickly, and it really does not treat people with an ADHD diagnosis well. But here's 2 giant issues that make the game go from garbage to even more garbage. I don't have a better metaphor. Firstly, the AI is trash and you better get used to hearing the walking sound effects. And the nights are 10 minutes and 10 seconds long. No, seriously. If you watch the entirety of this video 2.5 times in a row, you still wouldn't have beaten the whole game, and that's assuming you aren't making silly mistakes like I did. The only redeeming quality this version has is the Disney Catacombs, which is basically just the MVD equivalent of the Pirate Caverns. Now, it's just a few rooms that have a key, and if you die from undying, you go all the way back to the start of Night 3. Night 5 has a boss fight with Nightmare Mick where you have to carefully listen to his footsteps so you can serve your flashlight battery better. Is it fun? Is it hard? No, it's just tedious and it tends to bug out at times. After this boss is over, the game just ends. Remember that key we picked up in the catacombs earlier? Well, depending on whether or not you picked up the key, the ending changes. With the key, the player gets to escape this place, but without the key, the player gets trapped and killed by Nightmare Photo Negative Mickey. Which, my god, what the hell do you call this? This is not some nightmarish, scary design that's making me wet myself. It's so bad I don't have words to describe it. This is probably the worst game out of everything here, and also just to add a cherry on top of everything, you get absolutely nothing if you beat the game. No extras, no nothing. All you get is a parody of the FNAF 3 ending, and apparently this made Just Games and Vines 2106 cry. Yeah, to be fair, if I was locked inside of a room and couldn't leave until I beat this game, I'd be crying as well. Version 2 at least fixed many of the issues of the first version. We now have nights that are closer to being 6 minutes long instead of 10, and now we have more mechanics. The flashlight is still here, though it isn't used to defend and it also has an infinite amount of batteries, so how convenient. We also have the heart rate mechanic, where if your heart rate goes above 100, you will die. And to avoid it from going too high, you have to take pills. Though if you take too many of them, you will overdose and die. If a suit enters your office, use the voodoo doll. And similar to the FNAF 3, there are hallucinations which will drive up your heart rate, and these you can't get rid of with the voodoo doll. Hortensia is also in this version, and she uses a lock cage mechanic. It's kind of like a music box, but it's also a lot more random than that mechanics. So, this all sounds great. What's the issue? Well, it has heavily to do with the AI. The AI is even worse in this version. Instead of describing how bad it is, let me show you. Oh, get out. Get out of my life. Hot dog emoji. Okay, very cool. Oh, hey, get out of my life. What are you doing here? What? Stop. 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 Get out. What are you doing? Get out of my life. What are you doing? The demon. Fuck. Get out. Why? Stop. Get away from my office. I don't want to talk to you. Get out. Get out. I don't want you in my life. For goodness sake. Hey, there I go. 6 a.m. Yeah, it's bad. Also, Goofy has this weird bug where he won't fully go away if you hit the voodoo doll button multiple times before his animation finishes. This means if another suit is in the office, then you're basically shit out of luck. Also, this version is just a demo and ends at night 3. Though that's not all we have for this version. There is a bunch of unused content which Mara has shown over the years. And here we can see stuff like the catacombs, and yet again, Mick and this boss character called Terror were planned for this version. In fact, in the extras menu of version 3, it actually shows a decent amount of stuff scrapped in both version 2 and 3. And speaking of version 3, this is definitely one of Marrat's better old games out there. Does that make it good? This one does follow a more proper story, to be fair, though. It seems like it builds off the rest of Marrat's old FNAF story. Basically, in this 1.0 remaster, it's revealed that after Jake got scared by one of the Treasure Island employees, he killed everyone at the island. And yeah, I've been told people on Twitter are soft when it comes to humor. So, I guess after the island shut down, and after what had to be a very interesting game of Ace Attorney, Jake gets put on the electric chair by the air, I guess. To be fair, that was honestly one of the more gruesome screams I've ever heard, even if the rest of the cutscene is complete garbage. Not that I'm giving Mara any credit here, he probably just looked up gruesome man scream on Google and just chose something that popped up. The mechanics are the exact same from V2, however Hortensia's mechanic was slightly reworked. Instead of clicking the button, you now just watch the camera. Sounds easy? It's not. If anything, it can be incredibly stressful because the AI still sucks. You're going to be spamming the voodoo doll, pills, and other buttons for ages, to the point where it honestly might be a good workout for your hands. Similar to V1, we have these logs, which is our consciousness basically telling us how to deal with everything, and also some random plot points. There are cutscenes in this game giving us a plot which, hey, Mara learned that both motion blur and camera shaking exist, so let's give it up for him. In case that isn't obvious, that wasn't actual applause. That is just applause that was probably recorded hundreds of years ago, and you probably just heard a bunch of dead people clap, so how lovely. Also, this game has a full-on extras, which are all very detailed and well done. Like, if there's a way to do an extra screen, this is it. You have characters, jump scares, unused content, and an infinite night. And we can't forget about that custom night, which if you manage to beat 920 mode, you get a red star on the title screen. Now yes, I like the color red, but what's even better is that if you click on it, you get access to the Vision Night. This is basically just a minigame that is the FNAF 1.0 map in the 4.0 style. This was actually a feature Stella requested herself to promote the official MBD in FNAF 4.0 that would be releasing that year to all the 0 people who beat Vision Night because it's impossible. The night at a certain point just bugs out, and I've only been able to track a singular person on YouTube who has beaten this. Though I do love the idea for this night in concept. Also, the ending to this version is just kinda disappointing. After you beat Night 5, Jake just collapses on the ground and dies. Like, bro, you really couldn't have found a better way to end the story? Now, before we get on to the official versions, we need to quickly talk about this. This is called I'm Scared MBD. For those who don't know, I'm Scared is this indie horror game that's like a heavily pixelated first-person puzzle of sorts. Granted, this version made for MBD was a lot of nothing, really. There's just a few random rooms with some props in them, and just Inkblot Oswald who can't even kill you. While this is an interesting idea, there's just nothing here, really. Not only does 95% of the game not function, but it got poor feedback from the people who tested it, resulting in the game to take a more casual approach, with the next build being MBD 2016. MBD 2016 was a collaboration between Stella, Whiten, whose name later got completely erased, which good riddance, and apparently Marat contributed to this version, though he only made a singular room in Inkblot Goofy, which was a scrapped character. The entire style of this game was changed from the original weird nightmarish office style to a more proper Tim Burton styled environment. In fact, the tunes in this version aren't nightmare characters, they are now Inkblots, and just in general they look pretty decent in my opinion. As for the mechanics, they have been completely reworked. The heart rate monitor is still here, but now you have to blink to get rid of a tune when one of them enters the office. Hortensia's mechanic has been reworked again. She'll appear in the cameras, and depending on the color of her eyes, you have to hit one of the free color buttons at the top left. Interestingly enough, after Whiten got removed from the game's credits, these sprites got changed, so I suppose this was their one contribution. For Nightmare Suicide Map's mechanic, you flip down the camera? Okay, firstly, why is a Nightmare character with a bunch of ink blots? And secondly, why did the main MBD character get such an underwhelming mechanic? Also, he doesn't even kill you. He just flips the camera back down and locks it temporarily. Double raise your heart rate, and yet again, you just have to pull up the camera. These mechanics are mostly fine, but this version has one major issue. The AI is at its absolute worst. I'm just gonna play a 10-second clip and put a counter over the top to show how many tunes enter the office. In fact, Night 6 and beyond are basically impossible if you set the custom night to the maximum, which is 40. Turn down your headphones. Every single character kills you at once, making Abandoned Discovery Island's 9720 mode look like nothing. I also do find it a bit silly that Stella went back to update the game after many years, only for her to be like, alright, well, now we got a custom night, and yeah, the AI is still clearly good enough to have an option that goes up to 40. There was also an extra screen with some codes, and these codes are something you can enter in this teaser game called TVHTK, which stands for The Vault Hides the Key. This is similar to the other Fnatic games where it just reveals the story of MBD and connects it to the 4.0. Nothing special, but still neat. There was also a Halloween version, which is pretty cool, and you can clearly tell Stella cared about making the entire update Halloween themed instead of just slapping a pumpkin in the office, I guess. However, it was clear that Stella wasn't quite done with MBD just yet. On March 25th, 2018, a trailer released on her YouTube channel for A Nightmare Before Disney 2. Awesome. And then on April 1st, 2018, a game released. The game itself is a chilling experience. It's very obviously an April Fool's game. Instead, you just have this Undertale-ish lawn boss minigame that I didn't take the time to fully complete personally. Though it's important to note there was an actual Nightmare Before Disney 2 in development. However, we are lacking some information due to the original game page being deleted. But from what we know, it was going to be some sort of Fnatic remake, and it was supposed to have a VR mode. So, wait. You were telling me that we could have been living in a timeline where both Breaking the Magic and Nightmare Before Disney had VR games? And yet they almost did, but then they got cancelled. We really do live in the worst timeline. The only things remaining are some of the character designs, which give me very heavy Epic Mickey vibes, and some screenshots and a gif of some rooms, which shows the game was going to be more like some free roam puzzle, if I had to guess. This version was cancelled because Fnatic 6.0 was in development, though I can only imagine a wild world where this was our Fnatic 6.0. Though I do want you to keep this version in mind for later. Now, yet again, we're going to stray away from the official versions for a little bit to talk about the 2 unofficial versions made by Mr. Manatee. I know there are plenty of fan-made versions of MBD, and this is probably the most remade Fantasy fan game ever. Though, just so this video doesn't end up being 50 hours long, we have to settle for the main ones. The original MBD remake Manatee made was released in 2020, and it was interesting. It was a weird combination of the 2016 and 2015 version, and it's mostly alright. Hortensia has a mostly similar mechanic. However, instead of clicking buttons on the cameras, you have to look at the color of Hortensia's eyes and find a similar colored rabbit in the cameras. Pretty cool mechanic, though it can be very, very stressful. The flashlight is also back in this version, and it's a lot freer than the other versions. To get rid of some of the suits, you have to use the flashlight and then blink. Though some of them, like the face, don't like it when you use the flashlight on them, which took me way too long to figure out even after my live chat was screaming at me about it. Also, the heart rate monitor returns, and it basically acts like the other versions, though I do find it interesting that when it gets too high, your mouse begins to shake. Also, this game has a proper ending like the others. And once you beat the game, you get some extras including office skins and a custom night. Albeit the skin for the beta office makes this game way too easy, to the point where it's not even scary. There's not too much else to this version. There's no cutscenes, logs, anything like that apart from that one ending cutscene I mentioned earlier. But it's definitely one of the more polished games on this list, even if I'm someone who prefer a more original take on the Nightmare Before Disney concept. And that is exactly what we got in 2022 when Mr. Manatee made Nightmares Before Disney. This game is entirely original, and I feel weird for saying this is a FNAF fan game without being a FNAF fan game. The idea is that you are Walt Disney himself and you're stuck in a cycle of a few nightmares. To escape, you have to use some of the mechanics. Cameras are a lot more unique here, and you have this mini-map and this camera monitor, which is basically what moves you. And you can also use the camera flash to stun enemies. You also have this music box for Donald, which drains really quickly. You also have to look for these walkers for batteries at times. This game also uses the term dream logic a lot. For instance, there are technically 3 exits to the stream, but because the dream logic, only the last one lets you leave. With each nightmare, the area just gets bigger and bigger. The character designs are most unique so far. Yet again, they gave that Tim Burton aesthetic, but in this case it has its own twist that I don't know how I can describe. So, all of this sounds very, very great. What's the issue? This game is very, very hard. Now, I'm honestly kind of off when it comes to these kinds of games just in general, but I asked several friends about it, and most of them said that they have found the game hard themselves. Admittedly, I was not good enough to get to the final boss, so that's why you're watching someone else's footage right now. But basically, the game ends by Walt taking inspiration from all the monsters he saw in his dreams, and he uses them to start his own studio, and Disney begins to thrive. And yet again, another featured-filled extra screen. Now that's all fine and dandy, probably one of the better MBD variants out there. But what if I told you Radiance decided to make their own take on Nightmare Before Disney in the style of Nightmare Below Disney? The game was released on October 31st, 2023, and it had a large push behind it, being announced at FNAF Fest, having several devlogs and teasers, and revealed the characters' models which look... I've seen extremely mixed opinions on these models, and if you ask me, yeah, they definitely tried too hard. They just look so over the top, and honestly, I thought they were AI images when I first saw them, but they aren't. So, yeah, this all looks great. Let's check it out.
Rise and shine, valued employee.
Yeah, it was the troll game. I'm not going to talk too much about the game itself because it's basically just a FNAF 6 parody, but I'm more so going to talk about the backlash of this being a troll game. Every single platform for the next few days pretty much just became a mini firestorm of people talking about how awful Radiance was for this and how it's the end of the world. Radiance pretty much responded by saying they thought people would get the message because of the blue screen message in Oblivious Casa 2.0, and that they didn't mean to lead people on and that they were sorry, and then announced 2 new projects shortly after. Or more so one now since Hypnagogia... Hold on. Or more so one since
Hypnagogia
isn't a Nightmare Before Disney revival anymore. If you ask me, this is all just incredibly petty. Like, was this being a troll game bad? Yes, of course, especially with how hyped it was. You can't tell me anybody would look at all of this and go, oh, this game is going to be a troll, and I feel like Radiance should have known all this. I do know people saying Nightmare Suicide Mouse being a female was a dead giveaway, but honestly, I wouldn't say a character's gender being changed is enough to say that, really. So, yeah, do people have the right to be mad? Absolutely. But on the other hand, you have people who were being like, oh, this is the end of Radiance, and oh, I hope this makes people realize how awful Radiance is. Like, no. Okay, look, let me just out of the way. Do I like Radiants themselves? No. For the record, they banned me from the Discord server for no reason, and I'm aware some of the other members have been involved in a bunch of shitty behavior. But if you're bitching and crying, acting like Radiance is the worst thing to exist because of a troll game, then you are part of the problem. MVD's current state is basically the same as it was a few years ago. Originally, Hypnagogia, for fuck's sake, was going to be an MVD-inspired game, but now it's turning into its own original game, and apparently we'll also begin a Steam page later this year, so I can't really talk about it here. I wanted to mention this felt like a redo of the 2019 concept, but yet again, it's no longer tied to Disney or anything like that, so that might not be the fairest comparison. There are a few MVD revivals I will name. Everlasting Ember for Disney, which looks interesting, though it doesn't have a lot on the page right now. Okay, I'm throwing this in at the very last minute, because I was just finalizing this video, and the script for this video is like a month old. And I just want to say that as you're probably watching this, the game is probably out. So, that's fun. Nightmare from Treasure Island, which is another interesting looking one. Some of my friends are friends with the developer, so that's neat. My friend Crystal Colton is working on a revival of the 2015 version of MBD, so it's only right I suggest it. That kind of caps it off for this retrospective. And if there's anything I got wrong, or something you want to share with me about this whole topic, let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. There's another free Fnatic retrospectives coming this year, alongside plenty of Disney history information. See you guys next time when I talk about... Can I say that word in the last 3 seconds of the video?